is John Barton. TLPA, a lot of stakeholders in ITR were present in Gaithersburg, Maryland, a month or so ago for the working group that John had started along with Craig Lacey. His bio is in the booklet, but one of the things I wanted to point out from his bio was he had 22 years as a field inspector for the Maryland Department of Agriculture, Office of Weights and Measures, and before taking on his current responsibilities at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is going to talk about what that is and what they do, because a lot of people, unfortunately, don't even know what they do in the regulatory world from the licensing standpoint. He's got a lot of on-the-ground experience before he's undertaken and supervising this effort. And I was impressed. I mean, I think it's a campus where they have proton colliders, and I mean it was a very impressive campus that they have, and it's harder to get in there than it is to the most secure airports anywhere. I think they did everything but take my shoes off before I got in. But once you get in the campus, you basically we had a great presentation from his technical staff there on GPS. So we're looking forward to continuing, John, working with you more closely than ever before, and to continue that relationship, and to have you at our conferences all the time, and vice versa. We'd like to come to your conferences at Weights and Measures, Don, and be more involved in this. And I think all of us as regulators should understand what goes into the meter approval process. So thank you for coming, John, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt, for that introduction. It makes me wonder sometimes how I get onto the campus my own self, but be that as it may, they do let me work there. As Matt said, I was involved with Maryland Weights and Measures for over 20 years. Within that 20 years, there was very little experience that I had involving with taximeters. That took a drastic turn here just a few years ago when I went to NIST, accepted a position there. They handed me the responsibility for matters involving taximeters. With the very prominent and newsworthy events that have been happening involving the new technology used in taximeters, it was a crash course for me. But I think I'm getting up to speed. I've learned an awful lot just over the last few months, more probably than I ever wanted to know about taximeters. But I appreciate the remarks as well about working with the IATR. One of my predecessors, well, she's still a colleague and co-worker of mine, Juana Williams. I think maybe some of you have worked with her in the past, but she at least attended one of the IATR conferences, but I don't think she was given the opportunity to address you. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I think it would benefit everyone if, as explained, if I would tell you all a little bit about what NIST does and how we operate. One of our primary functions is to promote uniformity, and I'll repeat that statement over through this presentation. That's a very important point. The idea being that we want uniform regulation of a taximeter in Nevada as we do the same regulation applied in Maryland. It behooves the manufacturer when you're talking about device specifications, what they need to design their product for. It also gives the consumer a very good idea of what to expect when they go from one area to the other. That uniformity is very important. We promote that in the area of legal metrology, and I'll explain that term, metrology being the science or the study of weights and measures and the units involved in that study. The legal metrology aspect would be the introduction of regulatory work and legal work as it applies to those metrological devices. We also provide a chain of traceability to standards and devices that are out in the field. In other words, when you take a cab ride and you're charged a fare based on, say, 2.7 miles, that measurement will hopefully be able to be traced back to a U.S. excuse me, U.S. standard, and that's done through a series of comparisons, compared with very little uncertainty involved. That's very important in maintaining a high accuracy standard. So through these practices, we want to provide support for the regulatory community. What we don't do is we have no police or enforcement powers. In the U.S., that's left up to the state and local jurisdictions. We try to obtain uniformity through cooperation with those local officials, and we work through that cooperation in developing, according to their needs, what standards need to be in place. We also work hand in hand with our close colleagues at the National Conference on Weights and Measures. They're very instrumental in instituting the proposals and recommendations that are put forward through their conference. We help the development of those processes by providing analysis of each recommendation. We use our technical expertise to provide an analysis for the proposals. We also provide a lot of training for field personnel. We provide that training by going to their agencies and accommodating their needs. We also are involved with the publication of two publications. The first that I'll mention is Handbook 130. Both of these publications that I'll talk about are in cooperation, are put together in cooperation with the National Conference. Handbook 130 is the uniform laws and regulations involving legal metrology. These uniform laws and regulations are adopted mostly by all states, and it gives them a template or a model to fashion their own programs afterwards. And I think it was Matt that referred to Handbook 44, the second publication that I'll mention here, as the Bible. And being a former field official, it certainly fit that description, because that's what you went to for specifications, tolerances, and technical requirements for just about every device that's out there being used in legal metrology. And I dog-eared many a copy, many editions of that book referring to it. This Handbook 44, it's updated annually. It takes into consideration the advances of the technology that's out there, the new products that come out on the market, and how to properly address them. The sources for those recommended updates come from individuals, working groups that are sponsored through either the National Conference or NIST, and industry. So it's a wide mix of input that goes into development and the publication of this manual. This Handbook 44 is also, it is adopted by 50 states, all 50 states, in one form or another. Not all will adopt that by reference, meaning that they don't always operate using the same edition. Some adopt that by reference, which means that as it is updated annually, they take on the current edition. We also work very closely with NCWM in other areas. As I mentioned, we are instrumental in the development of various standards and regulations that are put into place. We do a lot of training for the enforcement agencies. We are very often requested to provide that training by those agencies, and we're more than happy to respond. We have a number of courses in our curriculum that we put together material for, and that just gives us another opportunity to provide some uniformity in letting people know how the procedures should be done, what methods and standards should apply. We also act as advisors to technical advisors to work groups, and that brings me to probably one of the items that many of you all would find of interest here, and that was the recent formation of the work group on the U.S. National Work Group on taximeters. This was something that was formed in cooperation with the National Conference on Weights and Measures. There was a demand that was heard from regulatory folks that they don't have the standards to use as tools when they see these new devices and new technology out in the field. There was an outcry for them, and as well as some of the app programmers, the developers of these software-based programs that they want to establish a level playing field for their products. So there was and there remains a great demand for the development of these standards, and that's the primary focus of this work group. NIST has agreed to organize and convene the meetings for this work group, and I have been placed in charge of leading that work group and its efforts. We did have a preliminary group of 5 regulatory-backed individuals that met back in August of 2011. We developed a framework by going through the existing section in Handbook 44, which is applied to taximeters. We went through all the requirements within that section and considered that, is it appropriate for the new technology that's out there? Do we need additional requirements? Do we need changes? And we marked up that section very much, and we turned that out to a wide audience and asked for comment on that. That formed a basis of at least part of the work for this newly formed larger work group. That work continues in the review of these recommendations to update that code. And the other part of that work group task is working toward development of standards that are right now non-existent for software-based applications and GPS used as a measurement device, a source of measurement. We've had our first meeting of the U.S. National Work Group that was held by web conference in May of this year. It was widely attended. It met with success. It was simply a chance to give an orientation to the membership that expressed interest. We laid out the goals. We told them what we expected, what kind of a commitment they should be expected to provide, and what the goals were in, as far as the outcome of this work group. We followed that conference up with a face-to-face meeting held just this past September. We had about 20 members attend that. That was held just about 20 miles up the road at our campus in Gaithersburg. And we had about 20 people that were in attendance. It was a very good mix of industry and regulatory folks. We wanted to establish that work group that way so all perspectives are heard from. And the latest meeting resulted in additional changes on top of those amendments that we have proposed for the taximeter code. The work group has also agreed to advance the development of standards for software-based technology and the GPS used as a measurement device. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. It's going to take a little time to work through it, but the group gave me with a very good impression of their commitment when the meeting concluded back in September there. I have developed a summary of that meeting based on the conversations and the discussion and the conclusions that we came to over that meeting. I've circulated that summary to those that participated in that meeting, and I'm expecting comments and review of that just over the next few days. So once that review is completed, I want to start planning for another meeting, a subsequent meeting, review what remains to be done, and try to arrange a schedule of subsequent meetings that would work for everyone in the hopes of continuing the work. The outcome of this group is to develop proposals that will put into place standards, practices, and policies that field officials can use to assess and properly evaluate these new technologies. Also to update the existing code to where the technology is today. That code, I don't think, has been updated probably for about 12 years now. So you can imagine with the advances of what's taken place in the industry over that time period, just how far behind the code is. Those proposals and recommendations will be offered through the national conference, and they'll be vetted and given proper review and comment on. In some cases, they may be reworked according to the need for that. But you know, eventually we hope to have a vote and approval so that these standards that the group comes up with can be enacted within Handbook 44 and provide the tools for the regulators. One other thing that I'd like to mention, and I'm glad to see some people from outside the U.S. here, is that one of our goals at NIST is always to try to harmonize U.S. standards with international standards. The idea of leveling that playing field and providing uniformity, it enhances the ability of U.S. manufacturers to sell their product overseas as well. It goes a long way, like I said, just to level that playing field. And I think that's all I had. I'd be happy to hear from any of you if you have interest in joining the work group or offering review and comment for the work that we've done so far. But please feel free to comment and give me your thoughts.
Thank you, John.